Kenma woke to the feeling of fingers trailing across his spine. Morning. Akashi murmured against his shoulder. Kenma hummed, still half asleep, the bed warm and crowded around him. Bakuto was draped over Kuru like an enormous cat, snoring softly. Kuru's hand had found its way into Kenma's hair at some point during the night, and he was absently threading through it, probably not even awake yet. Kenma didn't want to move. Didn't want the spell of the morning to break. But his phone buzzed. Once. Twice. Then again, a rapid series of pings that meant something was going on. With a reluctant sigh, he wriggled out from between them, grumbling as the cool air hit his skin. Bakuto stirred, but didn't wake. He padded barefoot into the hallway and grabbed his phone from the kitchen counter. DM, user 741, they're nothing without you. DM, user 741, they'll see that soon enough. DM, user 741, watch your back, traitor. Kenma stared at the screen for a long second, throat tightening. The username wasn't familiar, but the tone was. A kind of toxic entitlement he'd learned to recognize, the kind that came from people who thought they owned him because they watched him through a screen. He scrolled back through a few older DMs. Most were fine, supportive fans, or casual questions. But there were a few other messages from the same account now that he noticed. Vague, passive-aggressive jabs, worsening over the last week. He took a screenshot and set the phone down. He wasn't going to say anything. Not yet. Not when the house still felt warm. Safe. Later, over breakfast, Kenma watched the others move around the kitchen. Bakuto was bouncing on the balls of his feet, talking animatedly about a young player he'd seen on TV the night before. Kuru was sipping his coffee like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Akashi was quiet, but not in the usual way. His shoulders were tense, jaw set too tightly. You okay? Kenma asked him softly, as they stood side by side at the sink. Akashi blinked, like he'd forgotten he wasn't alone. Then he offered a small smile. Yeah, just tired. Long week. Kenma didn't push. He didn't like being pushed either. But he kept watching Akashi throughout the day, the way his phone kept lighting up, how he turned it face down every time. The way his eyes flicked to the window a little too often. Subtle things. Things most people would miss. But not Kenma. Never Kenma. That night, he stayed up late in his gaming room, headset abandoned on the desk while his stream replayed on mute in the background. He couldn't focus. The messages kept circling in his head like static. He pulled them up again. Read them over. His thumb hovered over the block button. Then he hesitated. Whoever it was, they didn't feel like a random troll. The tone was personal, measured, like someone watching him for a long time. Maybe even someone who'd once been close. He checked the account's history. New. No followers. But something about it scratched at a memory he couldn't quite place. He set the phone down and rubbed at his eyes. He didn't want to overreact. Didn't want to be paranoid. But the unease was beginning to bloom. He returned to bed just past 2 a.m. The room was mostly dark, the curtain swaying faintly from the window left cracked open. The warmth of his partner's pulled him in. Bakuto's arms flung wide like a starfish, Kuru curled against Akashi, who was lying on his back, eyes closed. Kenma slid in beside him. Akashi stirred slightly. You okay? He murmured. Kenma nodded. Couldn't sleep. You never can when you game too late. Kenma didn't correct him, just pressed his forehead into Akashi's collarbone, breathing in his scent. Clean, with a trace of his cologne, like cedar and smoke. You smell nice. Akashi's lips brushed his hair. You're stalling. Kenma hesitated. You've been off all day. Akashi stilled. Work's been intense lately. It's probably nothing. Probably nothing. Kenma didn't like that phrase. It always meant something. But again, he didn't push. Instead, he lifted Akashi's hand to his lips and kissed the knuckles, lingering a moment longer than he needed to. Akashi's eyes fluttered shut again. Kenma curled into him, surrounded by the soft sound of breathing, the tangle of limbs and heartbeats. He didn't notice the way Akashi's hand trembled once before stilling. The next morning, Akashi left for work before the rest of them woke. Just a quiet note left on the kitchen table. Meeting at 8. Didn't want to wake you. I'll text later. K. Kenma sat at the table long after finishing his toast, just staring at the neat, precise handwriting. Something felt off, like one step was out of sync with the rhythm they'd all built together. I haven't seen him this quiet since he was in university, Kuru said, sipping from his mug as he joined Kenma. You think it's his job? Maybe, Kenma said, but it sounded hollow in his own ears. Bakuto walked in, yawning and rubbing at his eyes. Keiji's gone. Kenma held up the note. Bakuto took it, read it twice, then folded it and set it gently back on the table. Weird. He usually wakes me up, even when I tell him not to. Kuru and Kenma exchanged a look. None of them said it, but the silence grew heavier, like a pause before thunder. Later that evening, Kenma got another message. DM, user 741, you're not careful enough. You're too slow. I'm faster. And attached, a photo. It was blurry, but Kenma's stomach dropped. It was a shot of Akashi at a crosswalk that morning, mid-step, looking down at his phone. From behind, taken at close range, Kenma stared at the image for a long time. Then he did something he rarely did. He called Kuru. Chapter 3 coming soon.